We just had Cinco de Mayo, and I want to talk about an article that was in The Intercept written by John Schwartz, The Forgotten History of Cinco de Mayo. It's not about beer, it's about rich countries strangling poor ones. So while last Friday it was, Cinco de Mayo is usually just like, I don't know, white people wearing sombreros and drinking, margaritas and then vomiting up nachos outside of some sports bar or something. I know that's what we all think that Cinco de Mayo was about, but this is the fascinating, and I didn't know this, and it's important because it's still kind of happening today. So what happened was Mexico, and I'll go into the details, and the link to the article is below, and I don't know that the mainstream media is talking about this either. They're just maybe trying to sell you, Corona or Jose Cuervo or something. Mexico owed France a bunch of money, and then they said they weren't going to pay it back for 2 years, so France came in and invaded. That's how they got their money back. That kind of stuff. That's most wars are about some type of money, be it oil or whatever. And back then, in 1862, it was the Mexican soldiers were badly outnumbered and outgunned, and they fought off the French army. So it was like, oh, wow. But this article goes into detail. Some of the money that Mexico borrowed was during their civil war, and the liberals defeated the wealthy Mexican conservatives in the Civil War. So many of the rich elites that lost in the Mexican Civil War kind of welcomed the French invasion because they figured better to have a little bit of power under France's thumb than have no power under a new, left-leaning Mexico. That sounds familiar, right? Isn't that like the Democrats would rather lose to Republicans than let progressives take over their party? And this article goes into other stuff about how this has happened throughout history. Like, I don't know if you remember in 1997, there was the huge, they called it the Asian financial crisis, and how Indonesia had borrowed a bunch of money in Thailand. And so the article, which you should read, goes into that. But we'll talk about Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo celebrates the victory of Mexican troops over the invading French army at the Battle of Puebla, southwest of Mexico City on May 5th, 1862. Because Mexican soldiers were badly outnumbered and outgunned, the unexpected triumph was a watershed in forging the country's national identity. Militarily, it wasn't that significant. The next year, France captured the Mexican capital and installed a member of the Australian nobility as Maximilian I, Emperor of Mexico. It's also why I don't know that it's celebrated to the level that it is here, that like in Mexico, I don't know if it's that big of a deal for them. Here, it's just like an excuse to go drink, and it's just like fraternity, sorority people that are now out in the world and have jobs want to keep doing themed. They're always looking for like a themed party, and it's like Cinco de Mayo. Oh boy, St. Patty's Day. Like, so it's just some new themed beer guzzling vomit day. So Mexico had borrowed enormous amounts from Europe during the Mexican-American War from 1846 to 1848, and in a civil war, Mexican Civil War, 1858 to 1861. By 1862, it was impossible for the government to make timely payments on the loans without starving the country, and the Mexican president, Benito Juarez, declared that all payments on foreign debt would be suspended for 2 years. But a country getting into a bunch of debt, this is not new. Countries have been doing this for a while, particularly during wars. The U.S. borrowed more than we could ever repay from France and the Netherlands during the Revolutionary War, and the U.K. borrowed far beyond its means from the U.S. during World War I. When this happens, it's far better for both the debtors and creditors to organize something of a default rather than forcing the debtors to pay all the money back. Was a choice between getting some of it back or getting less of it back. So basically, their invasion was very honest, and here's what this article says, and I tend to agree. International relations are often like organized crime on a gigantic scale, but people pretend otherwise. Here there was no pretense. The loan shark enforcers beat the crap out of an entire country. That's what France was like, oh, Mexico doesn't want to pay, huh? Well, looks like Mexico's going to fall down a flight of stairs. Like this, and that's what we've done. But the thing that also we need to understand, why this relates to America today, Despite the wealth and power of the United States, we are now in deeper and deeper hock to other countries, with our foreign debt level approaching 100% of the size of our economy. That's bad. You don't need an economics degree to know that that's bad. A lot of this is due to the US dollar being overvalued, and reducing the government's borrowing wouldn't change much about that. Moreover, the great majority of our foreign debts are denominated in US dollars, something of which we have an infinite supply. Economist Dean Baker, co-director of the Center for Economic and Policy Research, also points out that we still have a net positive income flow because our foreign assets earn much more than the US assets that are foreign owned. We have a long way to go before this is a serious issue. China owns, my understanding, is like 60% of our debt. So just to give you a little backstory, there was a documentary about this, and I forget the name of it, but England owed us a bunch of money from World War I. And then there was some even from World War II, and they wanted access, or they owned access to the Suez Canal, and we basically took it from them, and that's when the English Empire started to collapse in the 50s and stuff like that. Then India seceded, and we're in a similar position. And that might be one of the reasons why Trump is trying to pick all of these world wars with like Russia and China. If China calls in on our debt, you better believe we're going to go to war with them. Like, we won't pay it back. This fucking greedy, stupid country, no way. It won't happen. So let me just read you the last 2 paragraphs of this article, which relates a lot today. But it's certain that conservatives will use confusion over this point in the future to claim that we absolutely must raise interest rates and cut government spending on Social Security and Medicare. That is, to claim we must undergo something akin to the IMF's structural adjustments, which is what they did in Asia, in order to keep our foreign creditors happy. This seems counterintuitive, of course, since that will make the U.S. a poorer, weaker country. Why would conservatives do that? The answer comes from the history of Cinco de Mayo. Many conservative Mexicans elites actually supported the French invasion and the onerous conditions necessary to pay back the debt. The conservatives had just lost the Civil War to the liberals and preferred gaining power in a damaged country under a foreign thumb to sharing power in an independent, thriving one, as I said at the top of the article. So when you break out the corona this afternoon, keep in mind, Cinco de Mayo should teach us that international politics is always everywhere about money. And that if you fight against a foreign influence, you need to be careful you don't get shot from behind. If a president comes into power and is a real progressive, I mean, you saw that when, Trump's campaign was sort of, he was anti-war, I mean, not anti-war, but he was like, he criticized Obama for sending rockets. He blew up the Republican Party, and that's why it was Noam Chomsky at the beginning of the year who was like, if Trump gets impeached, it's going to come from the right, because Trump is maybe potentially threatening the right. Because if Trump is all buddy-buddy with Russia, it's like, no, we need Russia to be this big bad enemy so that we can ramp up the military and another Cold War. And Noam Chomsky said the window to impeach Trump is closing, as he'll start playing ball with the corporate deep state and they won't go after him. And that's already started happening. He shoots rockets at Syria, and then everybody on the right and left is like, wow, he's such a hero. Fareed Zakaria is like, he became president today. We have a lot of debt, and this country could cut its military budget in half, start paying back its debt, legalize pot to bring in revenue, become a compassionate country versus a hated country. We would get tourism money. We could have a Green New Deal. We could manufacture green energy here in this country and put a bunch of people to work, and we could get ourselves back on track economically. But I don't see us doing that. We're just going to keep bombing, and it's all about oil, banks, war, and pharmaceutical companies. And they'll just rack up the debt, and the taxpayers will pay it off and bail them out, and no one will go to jail. We're going to keep pushing this, and this could get bad, just like what happened in Mexico. Oh, man. Thanks for watching, you guys, and pay attention. Vote with your dollars. Support the show. If you're going to buy something, the Amazon link is below. Patreon, like and subscribe. You guys are fantastic.